All right, guys. Last on the list, Jiří Procházka, the RIZIN from RIZIN 1 all the way to now, we've just seen him have a completely massive rise. He was able to make up for that Muhammad Lawal loss, early on in his career by winning the light heavyweight title at RIZIN over Muhammad Lawal. And, in the Volkan Ozdemir fight, people were criticizing him a lot for the talking and the taunting and stuff like that. And he did eat a lot of damage. But at the end of the day, in that second round, I think he just did what he had to do to win that fight. And, he does look like a very dangerous striker. I think that when you look at some of the kick power and just what he throws with, those are the more frightening things that he brings to the table. But Dominick Reyes talked a lot about the mental game and how, everyone's saying it, how he underestimated Jan. And for me, from a technical perspective, I think it was just the Polish power, right? I think that he did not see how good that left hand could be. I even thought, despite, all that bruising and everything, he was trying to make a little bit of a second win there in the second round. But unfortunately, like I said, that Polish power came out of nowhere from that left hand, and it just completely rocked him. That was a fighter who looked like he didn't expect what was coming his way, and he paid the price. And you look back at his fights, Chris Smythe, when I talked about it last week, he was able to kind of slow motion see his future and land that winning punch that got him into the whole realm of, UFC title contender in the first place, John Jones distance, OSP distance. Like, these are guys, and the thing is, again, we talked about the MMA math and stuff like that, but he also went to a distance with Volkan Ozdemir, and it was a split decision, right? So one of those things that I really enjoy about watching both these guys fight is I think that you're going to see a technical striker in Dominick Reyes who has crazy power in his hands, but at the same time, so does Jiří Procházka. And I think that Jiří, if he's letting off really, really early in the first and second, maybe Dominick Reyes has a chance in the cardio department later in the fight. Because I think that's where, if Dominick Reyes stays focused and doesn't take big power shots, kind of similar to what he did against Jan was very disciplined that whole time, man. He waited for his shots. You could tell that whole fight, even though he was playing that one shot game, they were landing with authority. He was bruising him with every shot. And I think that goes to show just like where he was coming from. If you look at Reyes, 4 of his 6 wins are first round finishes. Like, the guy had a very meteoric rise and fought the right people. That's the part that I love absolutely about his game. And I do think that he has an opportunity here to win. And it's kind of similar, right? I want to talk about how, in the Kimbrel fight, it's a pretty old fight, but that's a great fight for him to kind of mimic, right? He was fighting a striker who was actually running in a lot and throwing big blows. And you could hear Joe Daddy Stevenson, one of the old-time fighters, and his main coach kind of yell, Matt Hughes. And I think Joe Rogan actually talks about how that's a Matt Lehman thing, how he's really notorious for having funny names and things like that for some of his techniques and game plans. But, he's yelling to Matt Hughes, and he goes for the takedown, and he starts to work that style of his game. I think this is the perfect fight for Dominick Reyes to kind of incorporate something similar, because the standing and trading is going to be exactly what Jiří wants, especially early. Now, if you can get past some of those strikes, use your power lefts, use some of those kicks that have gotten you to this place, attack those legs, get him slower. I think that's what Dominick needs to do to really get back to the way he was doing things. He talked about how, using social media, replying to fans, being, overrun by trolls, stuff like that really affected his game. And, MMA is all mental. And I think stepping away from that, focusing more on his game, getting better in those areas are going to be what makes him a champion someday. And in this case, he really does have to avoid some of that craziness early, right? I think he could be the better fighter for the last 2.5 to 3 rounds. So for me, it's like, what can you do in the first 2 to avoid some of that damage? Because if he maybe learned Jan or slowed Jan down, maybe that power left wouldn't have come so hard. That's the beautiful stuff that I love from Reyes, especially over the, early part of his career. Some of the wrestling too is just going to come much more handy in this fight than it might have in the previous case, because Jan, we've seen even against Israel, was definitely game for that. And Jan's a different ball game. Glover's going to have that opportunity, but this is a comeback fight for Dominick Reyes, and this is a proven fight for Procházka. I think that after one fight against Volkan, despite it being such a clean finish, the guy really got boosted pretty quickly in the rankings, and he's now in a fight where he does have to prove that. Is this a classic case of the UFC pushing a guy a bit too hard? But I think that the record speaks for itself. 11-0 dating back to, RIZIN 1 in that sense, without that Muhammad Lawal loss. So, outside of all of that, it's just a really fun fight, right? I think it's going to be very exciting. And I think that if Procházka is able to let loose early and really find some of that left-hand power, it might be what kind of changes Dominick Reyes again. But again, very easy fixable situations for Dominick. And I think that's where we're going to see things transition in this fight. And it's going to be an interesting one. So quickly taking a look at the lines, getting very close, right? Procházka coming in as a favorite, but Dominick Reyes still hovering as that plus 110, plus 100 somewhere. So this fight's about to become a pick'em. I'd be very surprised if it doesn't. And, I'm personally leaning Dominick Reyes only because I think that the things he can fix should help him in a fight where Jiří might get tired later in the fight. But he's also a crazy wild man with very accurate striking. And I think that if Dominick Reyes isn't disciplined and isn't picking his shots well and isn't looking out for both sides, because he's really good at looking for the powerful right hands, he's going to have issues with Jiří. But this is an incredible card. I think a lot of strikers and a lot of finishers are going to showcase some of their skills here. And, they have a huge task to fulfill by following up UFC 161, but I think across the board, we have a perfect fight card to make that happen. So I can't wait for the fights. Don't forget my Goku-inspired picks will be up on Instagram, and hit that bell, get the likes and the follows going. I appreciate all the support. Till next week, peace.